Loyal viewer, you too can become a legend. All you have to do is...
Eat this!
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have eaten that in the first place. Hi, my name is Sil. So you want to get started on challenge running, but you don't know where to start. Never fear though, because I am here. I am going to give some general tips and areas that you can work on while you're just getting started. You can also use this as a cheat sheet if you've only just started challenge running and are willing to learn more. First of all, you're going to need to download the Godhome mod for base Undertale. This is a mod I made that allows you to refight any Undertale boss with no need for editing save files. The mod comes packed with plenty of options, and I highly recommend using it if you want to do some challenges in the base game. You should also be somewhat knowledgeable in some fan games because the physics vary depending on the game that you're playing. Fan games are made in a multitude of engines, so the more you know about these engines and how they work, the better. However, I would not be explaining every engine in this video. And last but not least, if all else fails and you need extra help, join the Undertale Deltarune Challenge Community Discord server, or UDCC for short. Many top players are in that server, and plenty of them have done challenges of the highest tier, so they are a great help for high level play. With that out of the way, let's get started. Before we begin though, I just want to say that challenge running doesn't come with any prizes other than a small popularity gain. So if you're looking to win a bounty or go straight for the hardest challenge, you're not ready for challenge running yet. This also applies to people who have not played Undertale or one of its many fan games. If you don't own Undertale and you're broke, I recommend playing through Undertale Yellow or PS Outertale first. Both of these are full Undertale fan games with story, and if you're willing to branch out to full game challenge runs, these are a good place to start. Well, I do not recommend starting out full game challenge running in Undertale Yellow. Most of the bosses are incredibly hard that you'll constantly need to restart, so I wouldn't start no-hitting Zenith Martlet right away. Unless you're null and void, of course. PS Outertale is unique in that every boss behaves the exact same way every time. So if you do the same things over and over again, you can do the same exact run every time without fail. This makes PS Outertale a good game to build up your muscle memory skills on. However, don't expect this to help you too much if you attempt harder runs, as the higher the tier of the challenge, the more ridiculous it becomes. Now, onto the question I know all of you are asking at this very second. What the f*** are tiers? I'm glad you asked. UDCC comes bundled with a tiers sheet that lists a diversity of different games and their respective challenges. Point amounts have been discontinued, so don't worry about counting them. What you need to know though are the tiers: beginner, intermediate, advanced, expert, master, elite, and grandmaster. If you're just starting out, only focus on these two tiers. They have some of the most accessible challenge runs that any player can perform, especially if it is their first one. Advanced and expert are more focused on faster plays, with some of them mostly based on memory and reaction time, and above expert is where things get really challenging. But if you're only just starting, do not try any of these until you have done at least 5 expert runs. These challenges are some of the hardest that we know of, and your patience will be tested with some of these. We may make it look easy, and you would think so, but it's really not. A lot of time and effort has gone into making these runs happen, so even if 20 people have already done it, don't expect it to be any easier than it looks. I may have done an elite challenge in only 4 days, but not everybody could do that. If a challenge run is not listed on the sheet, you can suggest for it to be added. The moderators of the server will rank it based on a couple of internal factors. If you're looking to get your scratch game added to the list, don't expect it to be added unless it's good and popular. Sorry, Logan. The community also doesn't add runs that were never done before, so No Hit True Pacifist, unless it's Outertale, does not appear anywhere on the sheet. The community also doesn't add runs that hardly anyone cares about, so Distrust 2 Phase 1 No Hit had to be pulled from the sheet. If you're curious, it was considered an elite run. When you're working with the sheet, don't have high expectations. What I mean by this is that if you're an advanced player, don't focus too much on becoming an expert unless you feel super extremely confident you can do so. It's rare, but players do skip tiers. Not because they were looking at becoming a master player, but because they were already working on runs prior to their knowledge that the sheet even existed. So if you ended up as a grandmaster without doing any of these challenges, and it was something that you did without knowing what this sheet was, congratulations. You're one of the small group of players who have achieved this role. And no, doing high level challenges doesn't give you any additional benefit in the server. There are cosmetics for completing base game challenges, such as No Hit Neutral and Tracker Bart Peak, but again, these are cosmetics. They don't do anything. Understand? Good. We can move on. Now to the challenge itself. There are multiple ways to go about it, but after looking back at plenty of runs I did from the past, I have come up with a formula to help you approach some runs. What I like to do is break up a challenge into 4 different stages. Stage 1. Can I consistently beat this normally? Stage 2. Do I understand how everything works? Stage 3. Can I beat this without using any items or healing? And Stage 4. A steady progression to no hit. You can ignore Stage 4 completely if you're doing itemless runs, but the order still stands. I wouldn't try a challenge run on any game until you can beat that respective game consistently. This directly ties in with Stage 2, which is being able to understand the attacks and steadily improve until you're ready for Stage 3. Keep in mind that Stage 4 is not always possible. There are some games out there that are so broken or poorly made that a no-hit them is impossible. However, games like this are incredibly rare, and UDCC doesn't rank them if the challenge is deemed to be too unfair or has too much RNG. This falls into Stage 1, as not all games can be beaten consistently. Therefore, you should not attempt to do a no-heal or a no-hit if you or anyone else can barely complete it. This applies to FDY games and some collections like Eden's survival games or Sanes's games. Sure, these games have been beaten, but sometimes it just comes down to pure luck with no room to react or any need for skill. So unless you're Salty Lily, do not try beating these games. Once you've established your skill set, you're free to explore. Set goals for yourself, but keep them reasonable. If you want to work towards something, consider it a long-term goal. For example, my long-term goal is no-hit true pacifist in the base Undertale. I consider it as a long-term goal because it's something that I know is going to take me years to do, and it's not something that I'm doing every single day. The more games you play, the better your knowledge will become, and the easier it will be to switch between different engines. Not all games are created equal, some work better and some work terribly. Understanding the leniency and playability factors in the games you play is the golden rule. And do not forget, take breaks. I cannot stress enough how important it is to keep your health in check. Playing the same game for hours on end is not that good for you. I know, this is ironic coming from the person who tried to beat Club Step for 7 hours straight, but it is important that you take some time away whenever you don't feel like you can continue with the current session. Drop it for now and return whenever you're ready again. There are no prizes, so don't grind out a challenge just for a coveted first ever rank. Whoever is first is first. Whoever is 10th is 10th. Placement doesn't matter. You can do a challenge anytime you want, but there's only so long you can do it for. This is also true when you're being overpowered with nerves. Playing while nervous, especially if you have a long-term or permanent condition, is never a good thing. This is different if you're on the same run that you started out with, but once you fail, I do not recommend trying again on the same day. Every challenge runner has something in common. They make decisions without thinking. While it is possible to climb your way to the top while thinking irrationally, it's generally unfavoured. Healthier playstyles work the best, especially if you're trying to balance them with things like work or school. We all have our differences, and we all have our different levels of learning. But having a lower level of learning doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad player. In fact, we were all like this once. As I said at the start of the video, you too can become a challenge runner. Even if you've done something that you don't really consider impressive, That in itself is a challenge worth doing. You don't necessarily have to be a master or elite player to be a good challenge runner. Staying in the advanced tier where you're comfortable is completely fine. No one can force you to do anything. It's up to you at the end of the day which runs you do and what ones you stick with until you get your desired achievement. And that's all I can do myself on giving advice on challenge running. I'll see you around in UDCC one day. Who knows, maybe you'll be the next Grandmaster. I hope you found this video informative, and I hope to see you again soon.